it is extremely like white supremacist of us to think like, well, in the United States, that's how I want to look at the whole world. Because let me tell you, across the whole world, there are cultures that recognize a third gender or a non-binary gender. Hello, esteemed colleagues and friends of the Neurodivergent Creative Podcast. Today's episode is about non-binary gender identity, and it's a wild ride. I'm so excited to tell you everything I learned about non-binary gender identity, despite the fact that I myself am non-binary. So I went on a treasure hunt of information for you. So Pride Month continues, or as I'm kind of calling it, Wrath Month, because last year was all about queer joy and how to live your queer values as a queer entrepreneur and happy queer things. And this year I'm like, here's queer information, learn it or else. And I don't care if that feels rude to you. You gotta learn. You gotta learn about people so you quit being mean to them. Fun fact. Great. Cool. So let's start off with the definition of sex and gender so that we're totally clear there. For the purposes of this episode, I'm going to talk about sex as like the genetic characteristics, the chromosomes, the genitals. So like that's the basic definition that we learn in school is boys have XY chromosomes and girls have XX chromosomes. And then we just leave it there. We're like, there we go. Binary gender, XX or XY, what you got? What's in your pants? That's your gender. That may be your sex assigned at birth. But also there's something called intersex people who might have different chromosomes. Maybe there's an XXY or a triple X or something else going on in there. There are people born with ambiguous genitalia that could go either way. And they usually have surgery to correct it. And by correct it, we mean whatever their parents decide. So if their parents are like, well, looks mostly like a girl, then they will alter the child's genitals to look female or vice versa. Some people don't even know they're intersex until later in life when like they go to the doctor for some achy pain thing and the doctor's like, oh, well, you don't have an ovarian cyst. You have a testicle in there. And some people will have one ovary and one testicle. Like, okay, so I'm just setting you up right now that happens. That happens to people. That is a genetic thing that happens. So, sex, chromosomes. We're going to go with sex as genetics. And gender is a social construct. Gender is about how you feel and how you perform and what like costume you are putting on to fit into society the way that fits right for you. So luckily for most people, their assigned sex at birth is the same as their gender identity. They feel really good with that. Like you ask them like, what makes you feel like a woman? And sometimes they don't have an answer. That's kind of how I got there. Is I was like, I don't actually care about being a woman the way anybody expects me to be a woman. Being a woman is all about being smooth and hairless and cooking dinner for your family. And gender is about how you present yourself to the world. It's not like an inherent fact. It can change over time. You might care less about appearing as a man or a woman over time. You may be gender non-conforming, even as a cisgender person. And also, just for starters, trans means like across from, like transatlantic, transcontinental, other trans things. Cis, you can actually say cisatlantic to mean on the same side of the Atlantic. Like Canada and the United States and Mexico are cisatlantic. We are all on the same side of the Atlantic Ocean. Cis is not a slur. Cis is a prefix, an adjective. So like we can all calm down about that. It is just an informative 3-letter word. Thank you for coming to my TED Talk. So, all right, we've talked about sex and gender, and now I just want to poke it a little bit because we talked about the fact that intersex people exist. So by now, if you believe me that intersex people exist, then you already understand non-binary. Because non-binary just means the light switch of this means man and this means woman. There's also other options. That's all non-binary means. That's all non-binary means. You could feel like you have aspects of both womanhood and manhood. You could feel completely like without a gender identity. You might just be like, I'm whatever, man. I'm a rock. I'm a tree. So once you understand and acknowledge there is more than man and woman, then you have the precursor to understanding what a non-binary gender identity is. Good job. Good job. Also, it is extremely like white supremacist of us to think like, well, in the United States, that's how I want to look at the whole world. Because let me tell you, across the whole world, there are cultures that recognize a third gender or a non-binary gender. So like Native Hawaiians, many indigenous cultures in North America. So like Canada, United States, Mexico, indigenous cultures had a third gender option. These non-binary people who in some cultures had like aspects of maleness and femaleness. In other cultures, they just, everybody's expression of it is a little bit different and unique to their own cultural norms. Cultural norms are a surprise tool that we'll come back to later. They exist, right? And also these people of non-binary gender identity were often looked to as leaders and priests and like healers. They are special people because of their rarity. They are so cool that they have aspects of two genders. They are so cool that they transcend our understanding of sex and gender. This is clearly a religious, spiritual, cultural leader. I fucking wish. Oh my God. I actually found this like interactive like map tool that I will link in the show notes. Like it's built into Google Maps. I'm surprised Google hasn't suppressed its existence because they're fashy now. But it shows you cultures around the world and you can click on them and learn about the non-binary gender identity. So like New Zealand, the Maori culture has non-binary gender identity. Let's see, we got Samoa, Tonga, India, Indonesia, the Philippines, Thailand, Myanmar, Oman. Like even in the Middle East, you guys, there are non-binary gender identities. Even in Siberia, Russia got in on this because indigenous cultures weren't so freaking weird. Honestly, indigenous cultures were like, oh, that exists? Cool, let's learn about it. Instead of the way that white colonial mindset is like, it's different, so it's probably Satan. We need to get over this. It is 2025. We need to understand that there's more to life than what we have seen with our eyes. Like, literally, I need you to chill. Daddy, chill.
Daddy, chill.
All right, so other cultures have non-binary genders. Are you going to be like, I know better than those other cultures. That's just hooey. That's just tomfoolery. That's just woke gender ideology. I really hope not, because that would make you sound fucking stupid, okay? You have to understand that other cultures are in charge of themselves. And if so many cultures across time and across the entire planet have understood that gender is not a binary, then I feel like we need to catch up instead of like banning trans people in bathrooms, which is a waste of time and tax dollars, frankly. That is nonsense. Nonsense. So let's talk about the fact that gender is a social construct. Gender norms are enforced by society. They are not inherent in your brain or your body or your genitals. Your genitals don't make you act a certain way. Certain men think that they do. Blue balls isn't real. Fun fact. But like, girls are taught to play with dolls, to play house, to get a play kitchen. Girls are taught in our play what we are supposed to do. In childhood, play is the work. Play is how we fit into the world. Play is how we practice skills. Play is how we are learning and figuring stuff out. So when we direct girls in their play to domestic activities, to caretaking activities, and we direct boys in their play to rough and tumble, wrestling, trucks, dump trucks, dirt, we encourage the socialization of gender from day one. And like, that doesn't have to be bad. If you have a girl and you want to dress her up in frilly pink dresses and put bows on her head, but honestly, let's talk about the bows though, because like some people insist on putting bows on their baby so that you know it's a girl, because babies look ambiguous, right? Babies are just little peas in a pod. They're just little pod people. It's just a little chunky baby in a bassinet. And people are like, I need to know this baby's genitals. I need to know this baby's gender. I need to know how to talk to this baby. And like we put t-shirts on them. Like little boys will get t-shirts that say like future heartbreaker. And little girls will get, daddy's princess and stuff. And like we really start gender norming the children as soon as they are born, which again is fine. It's a part of our culture, but it's a part of our culture. It's not a fact. It's not something that God will smite you if you don't do. Unclench. Like if your kid grows up and is like, I don't like pink frilly dresses, I'm a tomboy. We understand that. That's a little bit of gender nonconformity that we can recognize and usually respect. A lot of moms will be like, I was a tomboy when I was your age. I also didn't like dresses. And we can like justify it because we never had to do the work of unpacking that was gender nonconformity. But it was gender nonconformity. In a puritanical, perfect world, women would still be banned from wearing pants. The fact that we wear pants is non-binary. This is one of my freaking favorite things. This is like a little theory that I had in a book club, and then I wrote a blog about it, and then like it hasn't gone anywhere. I should honestly submit it to a magazine because it's really freaking good, is that the pronoun Ms. is non-binary. In the 70s, I want to say like 60s to 70s, like second wave feminism probably, I'm not sure. It's all in my essay that I wrote. Maybe I'll link that essay for you. Women were either Miss, meaning unmarried, or Mrs., meaning married. The only way you could refer to a woman was by definition of what man possessed her. And feminists started not liking this. And they were like, I don't want you to know that information about me. So we came up with Ms. And Ms. is ambiguous. Ms. means maybe I'm unmarried, maybe I'm married, maybe I'm divorced, maybe whatever. It is saying, you don't get to know that about me. That is information for me to divulge to you at a time that I see fit. It is a breaking of the binary being Miss and Mrs., unmarried, married. That's the binary that existed. And then when feminists started using Ms., people freaked out. They did not like that. They were like, this is unholy. Satan is at work. No, we can't have this. I need to know if a man owns you. And feminists were like, nah, bro. And now Ms. is so normal. We can't do that with non-binary though, because apparently, I don't know, that one's really Satan. It's not Satan. It's a frickin' thing that happens. I can't get any simpler than that. We exist. Non-binary gender identity exists. If you can believe that it exists, then like back off, basically. There's that. And if you can't believe that it exists, then you are willfully ignoring data. And I can't help you. And you're probably not even watching this podcast because let me tell you, if you don't like believe that non-binary people exist, you're not hanging out with me, which is fine. I'm not sure I want you here. But if you are willing to learn about non-binary gender identity and queerness and autism and all of that good stuff, then I invite you to stick around because I'm pretty great. Oh, I also want to talk about gender-affirming care. So we talk about the fact that gender-affirming care is life-saving, right? Because there is a high rate of suicide among trans people. That is not because transness makes you suicidal. That is because society treats trans people like garbage. Okay? Like how we talked about in the Magnus Hirschfeld episode two weeks ago. Magnus Hirschfeld was noticing that his gay patients had scars from self-harm and were more likely to commit suicide because society did not want them. And that is a really hard burden to bear. It is hard to be yourself. It is hard to celebrate who you are and who you love and how you want to express yourself to the world when that world is going to throw rocks at you and tell you that you're an abomination. So yeah, the suicide rate is higher among trans people. The rate of homelessness, HIV/AIDS, murder is higher among trans people because society doesn't value us, and that's dangerous. It sucks. I would like society to get better. But gender-affirming care does not just have to mean reassignment surgeries or, it doesn't have to be surgical. It doesn't have to be hormonal necessarily. But speaking of hormones, like women in menopause will get hormone treatment. That's gender-affirming care. Men with low testosterone might take supplemental testosterone. because they want to feel more masculine, more manly. They want to grow that beard or whatever it is. That's gender affirming care. So when we say that cis people can get gender affirming care, but trans people can't, that double standard is kind of obvious, right? You know, like our haircuts are gender affirming care. Some men have long hair and we're like, oh, you look like a girl. I thought you were a girl. That's probably not true. Like with little kids, sure. Hair is one of the ways that we mark kids' genders. In fact, my ex-husband, when I talked about the fact that I wouldn't want to cut a boy's hair until he asked for it himself, my husband was like, you're just doing this to be contrary. Like, you're just doing this to make a point about gender ideology. And like, man, when I tell you he's my ex, there are several layers to why he is my ex. One of which is that he thought long hair was going to turn our kid gay or something. I don't know. I would love a gay kid. Actually would love to foster queer teenagers who get disowned when they come out as queer. I want to be their safe adult who teaches them that queerness can be good, can be joyful, can be safe in community. That's what we need is community, right? Like community is gender affirming care. But, you know, women get boob jobs or breast reductions. Women are told constantly from frickin' birth to lose weight, to look more feminine, to be more slim and whatever. Body image issues are all wrapped up in gender norms too. It's unladylike to be fat. It's unladylike to not shave your legs. It's unladylike to have a Frida Kahlo unibrow. Frida Kahlo loved her unibrow. Leave her alone. Leave people alone. They can express themselves how they want. And that means that, yeah, sometimes they're going to get an eyebrow wax, or sometimes they're going to shave their legs, or sometimes they're going to go on supplemental T because they really want that beard to grow in beautifully. And like, none of that is anybody else's business. None of it is anybody else's business. It's between you and your doctor. So again, I ask you to chill.
Daddy, chill.
Okay, so now we're going to talk about how non-binary fits with the transgender umbrella, right? So we know that trans people are often still binary, right? Somebody assigned a female at birth will be like, I actually feel like a boy. And so they will begin to present more masculine. They will begin to present as a boy in childhood. Also, gender affirming care for little kids, like kids basically up until puberty, means like clothing and a haircut and a name. Nobody's doing like reassignment surgery at your kid's school. That's literally not happening. And anybody who tells you that that's happening is lying to your face on purpose. Lying to your face on purpose. So we affirm the kids. They get to grow into healthy trans adults where maybe they will start hormone therapy. Maybe they will get surgeries. Maybe they won't. If that's up to them, if that's between them and their doctor. Again, we don't need to be policing the way that people take care of their own bodies. We don't need to be policing the way that these people show up and interact in the world. We don't need to like treat them like pariahs. We don't need to kick them out and ostracize them and be like, this is trans people island where all the freaks go. Although that would probably be a very safe, very fun island for trans people because we wouldn't have to worry about being hunted for sport by the state. Awesome. So anyway, transgender includes intersex and non-binary gender identities. So if you are non-binary, you can claim the label of trans, but some people don't. Some people just don't. You can. It's there. It's an option. If you want it, you got it. The trans flag has 3 colors: light blue, which represents the traditional color for baby boys, light pink, which represents baby girls, and white, which represents intersex and non-binary individuals. So non-binary is already represented in the trans flag. We are acknowledged. Right? It's like, hey, honestly, I have a trans flag. Oh, wrong side. I have a trans flag behind me. I also have a non-binary flag, which is here. Because, you know, I don't know. I love flags. I turned them into curtains. I'm amazing. The non-binary flag, I do have to consult my notes for this, is yellow for people outside the gender binary, white for people with multiple genders, purple for people who identify as a blend of male and female, and black for agender people. And agender means that you're like, 404, gender not found. I don't feel like any kind of way about gender expression. So you're genderless. And that doesn't mean that you have to look androgynous either. I have a feeling we can do a lot of episodes on non-binary identity and trans. So there's all of that, right? So now we understand that non-binary gender identities exist. We acknowledge that they exist and that they are valid. We understand that gender affirming care is for everybody and that it's good for us. And now I want to talk about autism because there is I will be linking to this meta-analysis study in the show notes, and it reported an elevated co-occurrence of autism in trans individuals, which means that like among trans people, there's a lot more autistics than among the general cis population. So roughly 3% of kids are being diagnosed autistic right now. I could not find good data on adults, probably because a lot of us got missed. So if you've got data on how much of the general population is autistic, whether that's in the United States or globally, I would love to hear it. Please tell me. But we're going with about 1 in 32 children. Just kidding, 1 in 31 children, which is 3.2%. And then among transgender people, 11% autism. That is more, right? That's like nearly 4 times more. Something's going on here, right? Science. In my opinion, this is because when you are autistic, you are more likely to like ignore arbitrary social norms already. And so if we're already being like, well, small talk doesn't make sense to me, and other norms, I don't know. Small talk's the only thing that's coming to me right now. But like, we ask for clarification on stuff, and some people just want to be ambiguous and they want to be like, give me this report by Friday. And I'm like, what kind of report? Who's it for? What do you need? And they're like, why don't you just do it? I'm like, because you didn't tell me what you need. This is bottom-up processing, something that I just learned about that has blown my mind. So an episode is coming on that in July because June is for Queer Wrath. So got to stay focused. Okay. So more autism in the trans community, because I think autistics are more likely to see gender as an arbitrary norm that is enforced. And autistic people are way more likely to be like, well, I don't want to do that. That looks silly to me. Like, why would I follow those norms if they feel like crap? Why would I follow those norms if I don't have any understanding and I don't get any benefit from them? Like, a lot of social norms are for other people's comfort. And honestly, like to maintain a status quo. Like the reason women couldn't wear pants back in the day is because it would scandalize Aunt Greta, you know, like because it was a norm. Women wear skirts, petticoats, corsets, all this stuff. Honestly, some of those corsets look pretty cool. Let me see what else. Oh, okay. So that was the rate of autism among transgender people. Then I want to get into the rate of transgender identity among Gen Pop, the general population. Approximately, and this is coming from a 2022 report. I could not find more recent stuff. I didn't look that hard because I was trying to do this in a rush. I had technical difficulties with the first version of this episode, so now I'm recording on a Thursday to publish on Friday. So we had limited time. Get me more updated information if you got it. So in this 2022 report, it was estimated that approximately 1% of the population is transgender. And in the US, that rate is about 0.5% of adults and 1.4% of youth, ages 13 to 17. So we are only looking at people 13 and up, and that's about 1% of the US population. The reason, you might be like, why is it so much more prevalent in children? Is it because of woke? No. It's because we're talking about it, and children are recognizing aspects of themselves in the discussions of transgender identity. Children are finding language to explain how they feel in a way that we never had before, right? Emily Dickinson was trans. Louisa May Alcott was trans, but they lived as women and just sort of did some gender nonconformity because they didn't frickin' know that there was a word for this, right? So children are being raised seeing more examples of gender nonconformity, of non-binary gender, of transgender possibility, and they are finding words to explain how they felt. So when we freak out about, well, everybody's kid is just coming home trans and non-binary, first of all, 1.4% of kids are identifying as trans or non-binary. Once again, I need you to chill. So it is not every kid. They're acting like this is contagious. Like the trans kids are just running around school being like, tag, you're trans. And like, that's again ridiculous. And you are willfully ignoring just a natural pattern. Speaking of natural patterns, I would love to talk about the fact that 98% of the atoms in the whole universe, 98% of those atoms are helium or hydrogen. So by the logic of people who hate woke, right? DEI, all of this crap. We should live in a binary where everything is either helium or hydrogen. But we know that tons of other elements exist. We've got oxygen, we've got nitrogen, we've got gold and silver, and we've got manganese and all sorts of freaking elements. They are catalogable. They are on a periodic table of elements. And this is the same thing. This is the same thing. I am as natural as oxygen because not everything is just a big homogeneous blob. That might be easier to talk about, right? You don't need any nuance. But honest to God, if you can acknowledge that there are more than just helium and hydrogen in the whole universe, you can acknowledge non-binary gender identity. Okay, so about 1% of the population is trans in the United States. About 1 to 2% of all the atoms in the universe are not hydrogen or helium. About 10% of people are left-handed. We used to think that left-handed people were touched by the devil. It's just a variation. Oh my God. Like, can you see the pattern in society where we're like, if that's different, it's bad. We have to demonize it. We have to treat it so poorly that it disappears. And have you ever seen that graph of like left-handedness over time? And there's just this sudden like upshoot in left-handedness. It's not because suddenly left-handedness happened. It's because before that time, the nuns would come smack our hands with rulers for writing with the wrong one. We had to write with the right hand. Left-handed people had to learn and cope and fit in and mask and hide and be in the left-handed closet because people thought that left-handedness was of Satan. Okay? And that sounds ridiculous, right? You know left-handed people exist. You know that there's oxygen and nitrogen and all sorts of things besides helium and hydrogen, right? So you know that non-binary people exist. Also, roughly 1 to 2% of the global population has red hair. The devil! No, just a natural frickin' difference in human genetic expression. And oh my God, if you can believe that redheaded people exist, you can believe that non-binary people exist. This has been all of my notes. I hope you enjoyed this one. Let me know what you think. Let me know what other questions you have about gender, because this is a special interest of mine. So I would love to talk to you more about it. In fact, I actually have a whole chapter in my book about gender. It's called Millennials Are Killing Gender, which is pretty funny. Also, I did not know I was trans at the time. I thought I was cis. So I do refer to myself as a cis woman in that chapter, which is kind of funny. So the book is called The Gaslighting of the Millennial Generation. You should definitely check it out. It's like a good little primer on starting to see the man behind the curtain and like the systems that are at play. Like, we like to blame individuals for things, but it's a systemic issue most of the time. So each chapter breaks down something that millennials have been blamed for, and then like the structural reasons why that's a bunch of gaslighting bullshit. Honestly, really good book. Okay, I love you so much, and there is nothing you can do about it, and I will see you next week.
Creative with Caitlin Fisher as your host and creative coach. They'll change your approach and tell you a joke to lighten your load and help you along or sing you a song. Do-do-do-do-do. Do-do-do-do. Do-do-do-do-do. Do-do-do-do.